I'm joined today by Sister Patricia Marie. She's the author of this book, God's Mercy Awaits You, about healing after an abortion. Sister, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for this opportunity to share the mercy of God.
That sounds so beautiful. Thank you. You know, I know you're a licensed social worker, and it's kind of interesting, you know, when people talk about abortion, they talk about it as a choice. So it's kind of, you know, in secular cultures, it's referred to that way. So what prompted you to write the book about healing after abortion?
Well, I've been a counselor for about 30 years with a specialty in post-abortion healing. And I know that it's very hard for women and men to come forward to ask for help, that they're suffering really greatly and it affects all their relationships. So I thought, well, if I could write a book, maybe it would be easier for people to at least start the process. They could do it, you know, on their own time and maybe help them to open up a little bit enough to call someone for help. The main thing is that God is so merciful and people are afraid. They're afraid that they're never going to be forgiven. But God always forgives. And so the journey really is about accepting God's forgiveness, accepting others, really forgiving oneself and forgiving others who were involved in the abortion decision.
Sure. It's interesting, and you brought up that point, too, about both women and men who are suffering post-abortion. And we often think of it as a woman's issue, but the fact is it affects the entire family when such a decision is made. What are some of the other misconceptions that people have about post-abortive healing?
Well, again, I think the biggest misconception is that God will never forgive me. So that is a real obstacle to overcome. But I just urge people to have the courage to come forward. And I think they're afraid to admit to another person that they had an abortion. But the people who are there to help you, to help these people, really want to help. And so don't be afraid, I guess is the main message. Don't be afraid to come forward for healing. And one of the difficult parts is that people really get stuck in their grief. So one important part is really to be able to come to the point of being able to grieve for the child that was lost. And that really helps people to move forward. Sometimes people bury the grief and the pain. They get stuck in depression, anxiety, or even in addictions. And that makes it harder to, it buries everything. So it's important to be able to face the reality with the grace of God. It's a journey that really should be taken with God's help and with the help of others who are there to really be compassionate and to walk with that person on the journey.
Sure. And, you know, those first steps of even acknowledging that there's a need for mercy, and that you're worthy of that mercy, you know, as you so beautifully pointed out here, is certainly essential. You know, and through the holiday season, through, you know, Christmas and the New Year, and as we approach the March for Life, it really percolates in people's brains and brings up those feelings. What would you say are some of the first steps in seeking out that mercy for folks?
Okay, well, there is a lot of help available. You go to your priest or your pastor or someone you trust. Almost every diocese has a Project Rachel ministry where there are trained counselors and priests who are trained to help in the healing process. I think especially during the month of January, there's a lot of anxiety because the abortion issue is so much on the news. So it's important to not get overwhelmed by listening to too much of the news, because that can make people more anxious. So I think really to pray and ask for God's help, to make that phone call, to reach out, to really open up the door for healing.
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent advice, Sister. Thanks so much. I think it's important for particularly families affected by abortion to understand that we can support one another through such a tumultuous and a painful time of grieving and of seeking out God's mercy. It's a beautiful book from Pauline Books and Media. Tell us where people can get their own copy and how they can follow your work.
Okay, the book is available through Pauline Media, Books and Media. It's also available on Amazon. And they can reach me through, if they call Pauline Books and Media, they can reach me through email.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yes, they will get in touch with me. And I would just like to add that it's important for people not to get overwhelmed. So the healing process it's a process. It's step by step. And the important thing is that there are so many people that are really willing to help. The amazing part of this work is that when someone first comes in, they're very upset, they're distressed. But as they accept God's healing, their life just changes. They become full of peace and joy and restores their relationships with other people. So it's a beautiful ministry, really.
Great. Thank you so much, Sister. Thanks for your time and this beautiful message of God's mercy awaits you for families and for women who have experienced abortions, and that there is healing and God's mercy does await us. Thank you so much, Sister, for your time and for sharing your insights with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. God bless you, and a Merry Christmas.